Hi, my name is Stephanie. At the age of 31, I suddenly became a widow. We had a beautiful 2-year-old daughter, and I was also 3 months pregnant with our second child. Through my healing from this trauma, I've been on a journey to discovering grace and to help others do the same.
Hi, today's episode, instead of me interviewing somebody else, I will be interviewed to share my story by Dr. J.R. Flatter.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie. So Stephanie said, I'm J.R. Flatter. I'm the founder and chairman of Two Roads Leadership. Focus on leadership development, culture development, creating coaches. We do a podcast on the secrets of government contracting. So working with Stephanie, really happy to be working with her on getting her podcast started. So like she said, we're going to turn the tables, and instead of her interviewing a guest, I'm going to ask Stephanie some questions. So you ready, Stephanie?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, great. So, a million different questions. So I'll just start tossing them out there, and we'll let the conversation go where it goes.
Okay.
Brand new podcast. What's your vision for the podcast? Who are you talking to, and what are you trying to say?
Well, my vision for it is to help people through whatever walk of life who's struggling to be able to turn and rely on God, to be able to look to see where God's grace is intersecting in their life, and how we can tap into that and grow with God's grace, and seeing um, how he can get us through our struggles.
Yeah, it sounds like a really powerful mission that you got on your hands. Um, how'd you get started, or how'd you get interested in this topic?
So when I was 31, I suddenly became a widow. I had a 2-year-old daughter, and I was also 3 months pregnant. And my husband went in for a routine procedure, and I believe within 7 minutes of the procedure starting, he coded on the table. They worked on him for 2 hours, and they were never able to restart his heart. And so for the last 3 years, I've been trying to um, learn how to walk through this life with grace, walk through my grief with grace, and learn how to be a single mom with grace. And so I feel like there's a lot of people out there who either turn away from their faith, or they don't know where to turn if they don't have faith. And so I felt the need to share that with other people so that they can stay strong and, come to the Lord with all of his grace and mercy.
Wow, what a story. I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, I've heard the story many times, but every time I hear it, what a lot to go through. You got two beautiful girls now, and
I do.
raising them on your own. So, as I'm listening to you describe your vision for this podcast, I don't necessarily have to be a Christian to receive the message that you're delivering, or help me out on that a little bit. Let's look at your audience a little bit.
Correct. I God's grace is for everybody. It's not just for those who for those who are Christians. God's grace is for everybody, and through his grace, you could come to accept Christ in yourself, or you could still struggle for with your beliefs for a while longer. And so it's not the podcast is not just for Christians, but it is focused around God as a higher power and
Mhm.
drawing on strength from Him.
Okay. So as I listened to you, we've known each other for a while now and have talked quite a bit in the time we've known each other. You're a very strong woman, and I guess I should say strong person who happens to be a woman, single mother. Did you have that strength before this happened, or did you acquire it during as you were recovering? Talk to me about where you got that strength.
I think I've always been a strong person. I've always been incredibly opinionated, and um, I don't readily let people like walk on me. And that's something that, like, going back to middle school and high school, um, I was very opinionatedly strong.
Hmm.
And so I think that Keith, my late husband, he helped like soften that a little bit and hone it more into strength instead of just unwarranted confidence. And so
Hmm.
he through my relationship with him, I've been able to grow more in that strength and my inner acceptance of me and who I am.
Hmm. So you talk really freely and openly about grace.
Mhm.
So talk to me a little bit, us a little bit, or talk to our listeners about what do you mean by grace, and how does that help?
Well, grace has different definitions for everybody. The I think the most simple and um, easiest to look at is unwarranted favor. Um, and so there's nothing that I've done to deserve this, but um, but with Christianity comes the belief that Jesus Christ died on the cross for me to take my sins as long as I repent. And so that is grace. And because I didn't do anything to deserve that. It's just simply his love for us as humans that he took on that burden.
Hmm.
And so um, for me, grace is the strength and the power to keep going. Um, I've I'm in many widows groups on Facebook, and I have seen so many women who say that they don't know how to get out of bed in the morning, how to carry on with life without their late spouse. And for me, that I feel like with God's strength and grace, I've not struggled with that. I talk to myself and I lectured myself a lot on I have to get out of bed. I have to take care of my daughter and myself for the unborn baby. I didn't know that I was having a second daughter at that time. Um, and then it took me like probably a good 45 minutes before I sat there and I was like, oh no, I have to figure out how to take care of his cat too. Um, and um, so it's been a long journey, and I think that I took on, like when I was talking to myself those first several days of, you have to do this. This is
Hmm.
not a questionable thing. I think that I did really draw on that strength that I have internally that God has given me to say I need to get out of bed and I need to still take care of these things. That doesn't mean that I haven't been without problems. I did seek out medical attention a couple times, and I think like a year and a half afterwards, I started on antidepressants, because I was just doing the bare minimum. We would eat, and I would get Charlotte, my oldest daughter, dressed simply because she had to go to school that day. No other reasons. But me and the baby, we mostly stayed in our pajamas. And so, I looked at that and I was like, this isn't where I want to be. It's not where I need to be. And so I need to seek out some medical attention to try to help get me to where I want to be as a mom and as a person. And so I did, and got off of the antidepressants, and I'm doing a lot better now. But just because I say that I have grace or strength doesn't mean that I'm like some superwoman who has no issues at all, because I definitely do.
So, do I need to have gone through such a traumatic event to receive value from your podcast?
No. Um, and and anything that you have gone through that is hard for you, as humans, we go through hard things all the time. It doesn't matter what it is. And I have had so many people sit there and tell me that they have no clue how I've gone through what I've gone through. But just because this is what I've gone through does not nullify what you may be going through. A loss of a job, or the loss of a dog, is huge when you're going through it. And that it doesn't matter what you're going through. You can find grace and peace and value here with our guests, and with learning how to grow in our struggles.
So, what does the framework of your process look like? So, as you and I have chatted a little bit, you're going to invite guests
Hmm.
who have experienced trauma,
Hmm.
perhaps, not necessarily the same trauma,
Right.
and they're going to tell their story. And from that story, our listeners will receive what will be the long-term value of listening to your podcast.
My hope is that the long-term value of the podcast would be hope and strength. Um, that, even if you're not going through something difficult right now, um, eventually you will, and that you could go back to one of the episodes that meant a lot to you, or that really um, spoke to you, and that you could go back and re-listen to it, or just remember what was said, and that through that relationship, or through that conversation, you would have um, hope and strength and growth with that. Because as humans, we're all trying to continue to grow and
Mhm,
progress in our life.
mhm. So you'll have a library of podcasts over time
Hmm.
with a different guest every time
Hmm.
and a theme to each guest.
Hmm.
So if I went and looked at your library, I would see the date, the guest, and the theme, and then I could pick what I thought was most appropriate for me. Is that how it's
Right.
going to work?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm still curious about because knowing you, I know you have joy in your life. Um, what side of grace was joy on? Did you have it and it was strengthened? Did you not have it and received it? Talk to me about the process you went through to be where you are right now.
Well, joy is, a lot of people confuse joy and happiness.
Hmm.
And happiness is very fleeting. And joy is like an internal choice that you make. I choose to have joy. I choose to have um a light in my life. And So with that, I have had joy. I've known deep sorrow. Uh, but even with that, I have continued to choose the joy in life, and through Christ that brings that joy for me. Um, I One of the things that Keith taught me very early on in our relationship was is that he couldn't bring me fulfillment. That I have to find that for myself, and that you can't put that on another person, because that's too much to put on one other person. There has to be fulfillment and joy through other parts of your life. And so I do find that a lot of people who are struggling to continue after they've had their loss, um, they they found their fulfillment solely through their spouse. And now that their spouse is no longer there, they have no clue how to find fulfillment now.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. So you use the word fulfillment in a way that you lost. I don't know if you're telling me you did or you've seen that others have, and now they have no fulfillment. Is that part of the
Yeah.
challenge?
So I think that one of the things that we um like in our modern day, I think that from kids, we are shown through movies that we watch and stuff like that, like nearly every single princess movie is looking for the knight to come and save her. And so, like we are raised to believe that once we have this happily ever after, that we're looking for a spouse or a relationship to create that happily ever after, that is our fulfillment.
Hmm.
And so he taught me that that's a lot to put on a person. That's
Hmm.
too much, and that our fulfillment has to come from somewhere else, through your work, through your religion, through something else. It's too much to put on your relationship. And so um so um I did I put that into my faith. I fully believe that I'm fulfilled through God. I it's been 3 years. I haven't dated anybody since. Not that I'm opposed to it or I'm still too heartbroken to, just simply because I don't find a need to. Um, but I'm open to if somebody were to come into my life. And so I don't need a relationship to fulfill me. And that's what I find is lacking in some of these other women that I'm observing, is that they it seems as though they're finding their fulfillment solely through their relationship, and now that the relationship is no longer, they don't know how to start up life again.
Hmm. Yeah, it's powerful insight. So as I envision who your potential listeners are, I'm wondering, I don't want to come every week and cry, or come every week and revisit the most painful event in my life, perhaps, or certainly within recent history. Um, what's the message there if someone's thinking that that might be where your audiences will be?
Well, I don't want to cry every week either. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't want that to be the theme either, of come in and cry. But I do think that there is a lot of power and a lot of strength from our hardest times.
Mhm.
And so we will be visiting the things that people have gone through with their hardest times to find the joy and the grace and the
Yeah.
happiness from that. And so it's not going to be completely focused on this one terrible experience. It's going to be focused on how did we rebuild the life from that
Mhm.
horrible experience.
Mhm. Hmm. Yeah, that's really powerful. So you're not focused on the event, but more so the journey through the event and coming out on the other side.
Right. Yep.
So the people that you're engaged with on the other side of trauma, sounds like there's healing, obviously, but perhaps never healing completely because the event never goes away.
It never goes away, and there's no, like one of the huge misconceptions about grief is that you have to get past it. There's no getting past grief because it has changed how you think.
Mm,
Um, you have to work through it and, you know, w- try to figure out how to do this thing called life
mm,
beyond the grief that you feel. Like even with the COVID vaccine, I was having a discussion with somebody and and she had said something that, like for her, it was just a complete no-brainer. But for me, I was like, I look at life completely different. I've already lost my spouse. And so I have to look at these decisions for me and my children differently than what somebody else would look at if they haven't gone through a loss like that.
mm,
And so it's not to say that it's right or wrong or anything else. It's just whatever you've gone through and with your healing, it still encompasses every decision that you make and how you live your life and what you believe and what you think and everything else. No matter how much healing you have, this thing is still always carried with you.
mhm. I hate to keep saying the same word, but that's really powerful insight. You've reminded me of one of my favorite quotes that no man, no woman ever steps in the same river twice
Mhm.
because they're neither the same person nor is it the same river. And
Right?
so, for the first time, you just connected those two for me in that you wouldn't be the same person on the other side, and neither should you expect to be.
Right?
So, if we're struggling through this event, looking for the old us, it's not going to happen. We have
No.
to be looking for the new us.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, that's good stuff. Great. Um, so we've talked about format, inviting guests with themes. Talk to me about some of the specifics of the format. So I'm your guest. I'm sitting in the hot seat for the week or the distinguished chair of the week. And you've introduced me. I've said a little bit about myself. And so, how does it go after that?
I really want to dive in. Like I would ask you to explain what the trauma was in your life that you've gone through. And then I really want to dive into the healing process through that and specifically different ways that you have encountered God or the grace of God through that. So, like, one of the ways that I really encountered God, like, within the first year after he passed away was he passed away in June. And so then in October, I I was like right at the end of being able to travel. So I took Charlotte and we went to California. And so on our way back to the airport, I got rear-ended.
Mm,
Um, like I was
mm,
11 minutes from the car rental place, and some guy rear-ended me and then he ran.
mm,
And so like I like it's such a change in life to be with somebody in this relationship for your entire adult life to holy cow, how am I supposed to do this by myself? Like not only do I have to worry about myself in this car accident and my unborn baby in this car accident, but then I have a toddler too. And like as soon as he hit us, um like I reached behind and we grabbed each other's hands and she wouldn't let go of me because
mm,
she was so afraid. And so there's a lot of how to walk through this by yourself, but everything in that entire journey to get home, I saw God every step of the way, down to the lady who did my ultrasound. um we started talking, and and she, like I told her that I was a widow and I was really afraid and nervous and all this stuff if I had to stay there overnight, that the hospital was telling me that Charlotte couldn't stay with me, but I live in Illinois, all my family is in
mhm,
Illinois, and I'm in
mhm,
California. And so, you know like there's no options here, like if I stay, she stays. And so the ultrasound tech, she looked at me and she was like, I have my Bible study tonight, do you mind if we pray for you?
mm.
And I just started weeping because I was and I said to her, I'm like, I'm missing my Bible study tonight, to fly home, which doesn't look like I'm flying home. um and so she prayed for me. So then leaving the hospital, I've never done an Uber or like a Lyft, or taxis have only been with other people. And so I was really nerve-wracked about
Mhm,
getting, like not only me getting into a stranger's car, but putting my daughter into a stranger's car too. And so I had my mom on the phone and I'm talking to this driver. And so then I hear on the radio, a Christian radio station. And so then I said to my mom, I was like, okay, I think I'm good. Like, I'll call you when I get to the hotel. And so me and the driver, we started talking about the Christian radio station because I couldn't find it the whole time that I was in California. And and so I was listening to like my phone and other things, but and she was like, "Oh, really?" Like it's whatever, but it didn't matter because I wasn't driving anymore while I was there. But it allowed us to talk and share, and she shared a lot of like really difficult things that she's been through too, and like how she's worked through it with Christ. And so, like even just your smallest interactions, when you're terrified out of your mind, I was still, like God was still showing me that he was with me through every step of the way. And through that 24-hour period from being hit, uh and the guy fleeing the scene, to me getting home and off of the plane, I have probably 7 or 8 different random acts of kindnesses
mm,
from
mm.
God that I could share with you, and that's only 2.
Yeah, let's start cataloging those. Those will be important to put in our library. Um, so you mentioned uh, grace several times, God several times. What if I'm not there yet and I have trauma in my life?
Keep listening, and hopefully you'll find him. Um, we can get through things without God, but it's so much easier to have God on our side, and to trust and believe that this can work for something good. Um, like as I look through my memories on Facebook right after it happened, I'm about to come up to the anniversary again. And the days and weeks right after it all happened, um one of the things that I kept saying over and over again was, I know that God will make good of this. I don't know how yet, and I can't see it, but I know that he will make good of this. And so, if I can help one person come to Christ or keep their relationship with Christ through the pain and the hurt that they feel, then that's good. Like I'm happy. Um, for my trauma that I've been through, because uh it's hard, and God can help you through it. God can be there to comfort you. And it seems like such a ridiculous thing to say, but so many people have asked me, well, what helped you the most, when you were going through it? And I tell people to pray, and they just look at me like I want to do something tangible. And but I'm not even kidding you. Like, I could feel the supernatural presence and peace in my life. People were praying for me. I knew people were praying for me. And that's a powerful thing, and it's an important thing to have. And so, like, if you are not in the faith yet, if you don't believe in God, that's fine. Stick around, see if you can learn something that could help you through your trauma, your hard time, your grief, whatever it is you're going through.
Yeah, that's comforting to know that I'm not going to be a stranger, that I'll be welcome. I'll be
For
part of the
sure.
tribe.
Yeah.
I'm not being pulled. You're certainly offering, but you're not pulling me in that
Right.
direction. But I can
And
still receive value,
yes.
healing, even if I don't ever get where you are or get close to where you are in your relationship with God. Okay, great. That's
And some of the
exciting.
guests that I've thought about having on, they are nowhere near where I'm at, or like, they grew up in the church, but then they don't continue to go to church. And so, this is a come as you are
Hmm.
place. It's it's not about it's not about coming to, I mean, I hope that people come to Christ through this, but it's about how to work through trauma, and how to get through those struggles that we face.
Wonderful. So, time of day, day of the week, how do I get in touch with you? If I want to be a guest, even if I want to be a listener, if I want access to your library of information.
So my podcast is called Discovering Grace, and
Wonderful.
my website is um pressedcoal.com, and that reference is to the idea um that diamonds come from pressed coal. So even though we are being pressed at the time, something beautiful can come of it, and
Mm,
will come of it, if we allow the pressure and the time to get there.
mm.
And so pressedcoal.com, and Discovering Grace is the podcast. And my email address is loader, LODOR, .se87@gmail.com. And you can contact me whenever you like, and I would love to have you as a guest on my show. And I look forward to talking with you about what we have seen and grown through with our difficult times.
Mm. Yeah, good stuff. Last question. When we first started, you used the word I need to. I need to do this podcast. Talk to me a little bit where that comes from.
Um, so um, I have asked God a few different times why I'm on this path. Why do I have to go through this? And and so not I don't believe that God like intentionally killed my husband. I don't think that there was anything malicious about it. He had a heart condition in his 20s and he didn't get it taken care of. And so he made a lot of bad health decisions throughout his life. And so then by the time that we did go to get it looked at, it was too late.
Mm,
So I'm not at all saying that he like maliciously killed my husband. I am saying that he chose not to save him because of his life decisions. And that includes smoking and not eating right and, just not taking care of his body. And so, or not going for 20 years to get a checkup on his heart that he had a stent in. um,
mm,
and so I heard very audibly when I asked God why I'm on this path is because God needs me to be on this road, and I wasn't on this road before. And so going through this trauma, going through this hurt, I have gotten on this road. And so I have struggled and I have fought with God. I don't want this. I am not the kind of person that wants anybody to know my name. Like, I like to sit in the dark and be in the background of everything. I don't want my name in lights. Not even a little bit, but I do this because God has called me, and God has when I have said no, God won't let me sleep. And so I have finally taken a deep breath and begrudgingly said fine, and we will get through this so that God's glory can show and become light, because this is what he has called me to do.
wow. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to talk to you today.
Thank
Uh,
you, JR.
Just
It's
a
been
few
great.
weeks ago when we started this, it's a complete transformation in your voice, your confidence, your power. You're ready to rock this, and it's going to be really, really good, really, really powerful.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care.
You too. Bye.